We've got a few scams at Goodnature.
Have you?
One is like our internal accountant gets an email. Hey, I need you to wire $80,000 to this account right away, and please don't talk to anybody about this. Blah blah blah, whatever. And our accountant just sent the money to Germany.
No.
Yeah.
What?
It was like a spoofed email. So the name was my brother's name.
Oh my god!
But it was a different email address. But then, because of the time zone difference, we were able to get the wire sent back or canceled before their banks open in Germany. So that was almost an $80,000 scam. And then we've had other ones like our sales guy will be trying to sell an X1 for a couple months, and then finally the guy will send the money, and it'll be like $100,000 too much. So say it's an X1, a $25,000 X1, they'll send $125,000, and then immediately send an email like, "Oh, I accidentally sent too much. I need you to send that wire back right away." But in the back end, they're already going to cancel the wire that they sent, because you have like a certain number of hours. So then you send the wire, and then the other one that was canceled goes back too.
So they get both.
Yeah. But I think we fell for that once many years ago, and now we tell them we have to wait for wires to clear before we send anything back.
Yeah.
And that's saved us a couple times. And then we've also had some like fraudulent check stuff. Like we get a check, kind of similar scam. You get a check, and then it's for the wrong amount, and they say, "Oh, just send the balance back to this account." It's like a different account. And we also got scammed by a fake freight company. Like a customer's like, "Hey, I want you to use this freight company, so pay this company to ship it." So then we did that, and then it was just like a total fake company.
Oh gosh!
So,
did the customer know that it was a fake company?
Yeah, it ended up being a total scam. It wasn't even like a real customer. It's like,
I'm telling you. The whole thing was a scam. I'm telling you, it's getting really difficult to tell anymore with like as this AI stuff comes up. Like I was reading this article about like real estate, and how this like artificial intelligence now, like designers are putting up, these pictures, and you can't tell if that's actually real or if it's an artificial picture that's been designed. I just it's a slippery slope.
My grandpa used to always go into places a long time ago, and he'd always be like, "You guys accept rubber checks?" when he was paying.
Rubber checks.
He's like, as long as they don't bounce. So stupid. But every place we go, grocery store, everywhere, just ask them if they accept rubber checks, man. Just waiting for that.
You do it every time.
Grandpa joke.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.
Ow, ow, ow! What's up, my juice lovers? Welcome to Good Nature Radio. This is your host, Charlie Wetlaufer, joined by the top two juice business consultants of the world, Chef Ari Sexner, author of The Juicing Companion, and Olivia Esquivel, founder and owner of Southern Press Juicery, the award-winning juice bar. She's also the founder of the Wild Crafted Collection. Good Nature Radio is the weekly Friday podcast where the juicing industry comes together to get help with starting and growing a juice bar, home-based juice business, or cold-pressed juice delivery company. Podcast is brought to you by Good Nature, the world leader in commercial cold-pressed juicers and juice business consulting. Family-owned business since it was founded in 1976 by my dad, Dale Wetlaufer. If you'd like to send us a comment or question, you can leave us a voicemail at goodnature.com/radio. That's also where you can request a free consultation with our juicing experts. You can email us in a question at radio@goodnature.com. And don't forget to check out the Goodnature Juicing Facebook group. Just go on Facebook and search for Goodnature Juicing. You'll find us there. And we have a great episode for you today. We are going to be talking about everything related to sourcing suppliers and sourcing produce and how to buy stuff for your juice business. Before we get into that, I just want to say congrats to both of you for successful course launches as part of the Goodnature School of Juice, which we launched a few weeks ago. We did a special launch week for both of your courses, and they both been selling very well. We got amazingly positive feedback. If anybody wants to check out our educational courses, maybe not ready to fork up the dough to pay for consulting, maybe you can start with one of the courses over at learn.goodnature.com. Sure to check those out. Okay, how to source suppliers. We're going to talk about how to find a supplier, what is a distributor in general and how that works with logistics, challenges of sourcing certain items like organic produce, negotiating with multiple suppliers and having backup suppliers, what to do in a pinch if you run out of something, and more. So let's start out with, I guess, like Olivia, in your business, if you want to launch a new product or a new recipe and you need to source something you never purchased before, what's sort of the first place you look?
Well, first, if I'm launching something I've never done before with like a unique ingredient, usually I'll just buy a small batch of it, like whether I buy it from a local farmer's market or when I'm testing it, just to see just how that ingredient behaves and make sure that it's something that, that I want to add to the menu, that is well received, etc. All the while I'm betaing it, I'm also shopping around for it, looking for high quality, looking for, how accessible it is. If it's something I have to order online, how long does it take? And then looking to see what it's going to do to my food cost, because I find that a lot of people will add things to their menu and then not, because they get excited about it and then not think about how it's going to, one, how easy is it going to be for them to get it? And then two, how it's going to affect their food cost. So for me, all of those boxes have to be checked before I add a new item. And then, then I'll proceed with it. But if it's something that I'm trying to focus on that's local, like let's say it's, peach season or it's watermelon season and there's local purveyors that can get that for me, then obviously I, create a relationship with them. I always try to talk about which local purveyors, we're featuring, feature them on our Instagram or whatever method I'm able to shout out to them. So first, I think it depends on if it's something local, then I think you want to source that locally. If it's something that I want to keep beyond a season or for a longer period of time, then I'll probably usually look for a larger purveyor. One of the issues I've run into with local purveyors is sometimes they're not able to keep up with the supply that Southern Pressed Juicery needs. And so that's something you really have to talk out also. Make sure that, you're taking a guess at what sales would look like, but that they're able to give you the amount of berries that you're going to need to get through. So think about that as well. And then if I'm going to source it outside of local, then, I tend to use, I try to get as many things as I can from one supplier. And that supplier for me is one of the larger suppliers, and they give me several drops a week as I need it. The benefit to having a larger supplier like that is obviously, access to thousands and thousands of products, even special order products. And even more than that, because my spaces aren't huge, a lot of times if I need something, they will hold it for me in their warehouse and then just drop ship it as I need it. And that is a huge thing for me. Like whether it's bottles or whether it's, cases of coconut water or whatever it is that I don't have the storage for, make sure that you work with a purveyor who's going to be listening to your needs, aware of your storage spaces, and your capacity, and then finding a way to make it happen for you. So it kind of depends if it's a local kind of niche thing or if you're looking for a larger purveyor. I would say be careful with larger purveyors and the fact that a lot of times they'll have a large minimum order. And that can be difficult if you're only getting a couple of items from them. So if that's the case, ask for special orders from people that you can get the most things from, and then see if you can hitch on to any orders from anybody else in the local community with you. Like, can you combine an order to reach that minimum with maybe the bakery next door or, somebody else across the street. That sometimes is really helpful when you're starting out small.
And can you talk a little bit more about how that relationship works with that sounds like a pretty traditional distributor type relationship where they have a big list of stuff and you tell them what you need. So how does that work like financially?
Yeah. So, for us, I think we work on each distributor will have a different relationship, like where either you pay them on cash on delivery or you do a net 30 or a net 60 or a net 90 days. So you'd have to work that out with your finance team and their finance team. I think we receive our invoice, we check to make sure that everything is right, and then we pay them on a net 30 days. But you want to make sure, like Southern Press Juicery got into a little bit of an issue lately where we were major over ordering. I mean, we were sitting on so much inventory that it was just affecting our bottom line because we were just ordering. People weren't associates, whoever was in charge of ordering wasn't really closely paying attention to our inventory. And so they would just order 10,000 straws when we were sitting on 100,000 straws. So if you're working within a small space and also have a budget to work with, you've got to make sure that you have an order guide. And a lot of times, sometimes I think we as owner operators think that we have to do everything and reinvent every single wheel. I really put it on to my distributors and I say, look, here's my menu. Here's every single ingredient I use. Go and find it. And I let them go and find it. And I've even told them, can you make an order guide for me? These are the items. This is how much, I will need of each single thing, like maybe once a week or 2 times a week. And they'll create what they call an order guide. So that you're not just looking on their website through a million different types of kale, right? But together you've decided, hey, this is the kale, this is the banana, this is the yellow tip banana I want. I mean, even something ordering like bananas, if you're ordering fresh bananas, there's 6 different kinds of fresh bananas. Yellow tip, green tip, half yellow green tip, half green brown tip. I mean, it's crazy. But you have to be really thoughtful about, that's just the perfect example. You don't want to order 6 cases of bananas and they all come in and they're all too green, you can't use them, or they're too mature and they won't freeze well. So, really sitting down, I think, with your rep and explain to them, like Chef always says, what your menu looks like and, what sells every day, what you stock, what you need special order, and then coming up with sort of what your budget is. Because if you're doing cash on delivery and they drop you, a $2,000 order, you may not be able to pay that cash on delivery. So can they send you smaller shipments of that? Can they drop on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday? And that way you have the cash to pay for those. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. But, one mistake that I see a lot of my new associates make is when an order is brought in, they just assume that it's all right. And they just sign the invoice and send the driver on the way. And that's the worst, because I don't know if I would say more often than not there's a mistake, but there are a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of mispicks. There's a lot of hands in between what you order and when that product comes from you. Sometimes they put things in boxes, it'll say fish, but there's apples inside. So you've really got to go through every single item, make sure that what you ordered is what's there in your juice bar. And if it's not, if it's a mispick, then you can send that item back and get money or get a refund. But don't ever let people just drop products in your store and leave. The truck drivers are used to, and they know it's their job to go through every single item that's dropped. So that's one thing that I find that a lot of my clients that I talk to don't realize that they have the authority to do.
Yeah, and you can do spot checks. If you have a box of apples, you can reach in the middle and pull a couple out and check them and make sure they're okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I recommend getting a refractometer that measure the bricks too. Works great for a lot of fruit. You could actually check it in, put a little and see the sugar factor. No, you seriously
really?
Can.
Wait, is this a real thing?
Important. Yeah.
Well, okay, tell me. Start
bricks.
over. I thought this was a joke from the go.
No. I don't joke around, Olivia.
I know you're super serious.
I don't play these games. No, but it's called a refractometer that measures the bricks in a fruit.
Brix, BRIX is the sugar content
Got it.
But it's
so that's how you can measure how sweet like something is.
Yeah, it's nice in a large operation like the casino or hotel. They have one person that actually just measures everything and monitors the fruit, the sweetness levels. But I mean, it's something great to have as well.
Oh,
and
cool.
a lot of purveyors, you could actually tell them, and just check it every once in a while. But I mean, I've got a lot of experience with purveyors, positive and negative. The purveyors, you got to develop relationships with them. It's extremely important. They'll tell you about shortages coming before it happens. Develop relationships with them. When you work with really fine dining restaurants, they might have purveyors for just one type of mushroom and have so many different purveyors. With juice bars, you'll probably have 3 or 4 for the produce, maybe 1 for some frozen items, office supplies, all different categories, but usually around 4 to 5 purveyors maybe. And it's extremely important to develop relationships. Like I remember we used to order a large volume in the hotel. Just strictly produce. We would order maybe close to 50,000 like twice a day, just produce. Wow. Multiple orders, just that much volume. And of course it's easier to develop relationships when you got that amount of orders. Like they're very friendly, but
they're super nice.
But something you could do that probably not a lot of people take advantage of is just talk to them and say, listen, if you got some creative people in the kitchen, what kind of produce, let me know if you have something on hand that you'll be willing to give up for a discount that you might not be able to get rid of in time. And I can't tell you how many times, once or twice a week, they would give me a list of produce that they won't be able to sell in time before it goes bad. And I can create recipes and get a much better price point on that. And I mean, it's a win-win situation for both people.
Man, what a good tip, Ari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. No, I will say, I will say that there have been times where really, really crucial things have not made my trucks, like bottles, because whatever, bananas. And because I have such a good relationship with my purveyor, I let them know, like, hey, I can get by until Friday, or man, I can't. Like, this is a big no-no. I cannot get by without this. I cannot even get to tomorrow. I've had them go and pick up things in their own cars, the reps, and bring them to me, like drive to another city. Or like, for my shop in Charlotte, like if something got left off the truck, I've had reps leave Greenville, which is an hour and a half south of Charlotte, and drive things up to Charlotte because there was a mispick or something. So it's just really important. I mean, I obviously wouldn't expect that every day, but and sometimes it's really easy. Like some of my orders, I just text my orders through because that's the kind of relationship we have. So I'll text, exactly what my order is, and they'll come back and confirm it. And then, of course you have purveyors, like Chef said, that are for different reasons. Like I have a emergency produce purveyor, where I know I'm going to pay a little bit extra, but if I'm in a pinch and it's Wednesday and my next drop isn't until Friday for my kale or my whatever, then I can call them on Wednesday and say, hey, I need this amount of kale for tomorrow. Now I'm going to pay a little bit more for it, but it's either that or have an empty case. So it's good to have just all kinds of different purveyors that are kind of your long-term goals that, are your regulars, and then ones that you can call, like you said, Charlie, like if you have an emergency.
Yeah. Never set up an account with like automated orders.
Yeah, never.
Unless it's like office supplies. For perishable items, you should have a physical inventory no matter what. Clipboard, paper, pen, pencil, whatever. Have an actual order guide, especially with produce. It's so perishable. Those people, your managers, yourself, or whoever, they need to go in there, check the produce. You might have a couple rotten citrus in the back that you think you have a case, but you don't. It's extremely important to do physical inventory every day. Don't guess on stuff. And yeah.
And have pars too. I find that that's one thing that really goes wrong is People don't have a list of how many apples do we go through a day? How many kales do we go through a day? I mean, you really can't set an order guide without knowing how much you go through every day. That's how you know you're in a pickle, is when you look at your par and you're like, I'm supposed to have 5 bags of beets and I have 1 bag of beets. I can't do my next recipe, and so that's something that's just as important. So just having an organized kitchen like that, and for the front of the house, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, and they either under order and then end up having to have a higher food cost, and because they're running to the grocery store to pick up something that really they could have gotten if they were more organized on their order guide.
Or
par list.
In the School of Juice, we do have a topic on setting up the order guide, sample template, everything. But you mentioned, those pars are extremely important. You're not going to know your pars until you start going. So you want to be able to have your recipes, be able to figure out how much goes into each recipe, and then look at how much space, how much cases of products in your refrigeration units, and then start dialing in your pars on how much you need to have on hand. Because you're not going to go into detail of how many pounds you need to have. You're going to be working in how many cases you need to have on hand.
Yeah. You got to make sure it fits. That happens to me more often than I'd like to admit, where, we sign up for big cleanse orders and then all of a sudden all the produce gets there, but it doesn't fit. So it's like, okay, well, we got to start juicing like right away because we got to get rid of this produce or we're not going to be able to refrigerate it. I mean, we have a small walk-in. So, it seems like a lot of moving parts, but that's great that in Ari's masterclass, you have all of those fundamentals to get you going to start getting organized.
Yeah. I'd say the other key component besides the physical order guide is figuring out what your backup plan is for everything. Turn on that negativity switch and think about every worst case scenario for every item. Have backup purveyors for everything, but think of a backup plan in case both those fall through. You never know if you're going to need a last minute product for, apples or citrus or bottles. Always think about, okay, if this doesn't show up, how am I going to get that in a pinch?
Yeah, and I think maybe increase your pars to make sure that you're never getting down to zero, right? Like make sure that you're at least leaving yourself enough wiggle room that if your apples don't show up, you still have some on hand.
Especially with non-perishable. Go heavier with that.
Yeah.
Figure out storage, but go heavier on that. And the perishable, definitely adjust through the seasons, and adjust your pars.
I'm getting so many ideas, but like one thing that I've noticed, Chef, in the back too, that I found to be really helpful is on some of our items that are oddly hard to find. Like if we have a certain kind of sprout, like maybe we have a sunflower sprout, but we can only find alfalfa sprouts or whatever, is we leave sort of a list of what is for the juicer, what's appropriate to substitute with. Like, hey, you're short on alfalfa sprouts, you can use sunflower sprouts that we have for this. Or if you're short on, red chard is fine if you needed green chard. Like you can do that switch. Just make sure if there's an adjustment that needs to be made on a label or something like that, that customers know what's in the bottle. But sort of having that organization of, if I can't get what I need, what can I substitute with it that would be sort of equivalent to yield and taste and color and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you really got us going here, Charlie.
Yeah.
Olivia, you said something very intelligent. I don't know when it was, a few weeks ago or something, where you said that a distributor is actually in the business of logistics, not selling you produce.
Yeah.
Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, and I actually sort of figured that out like a ding dong by sitting with one of the VPs of the distribution company that I use, and he was like, Olivia, let me put this very plainly. We have to pay for that truck moving, whether that truck is full or whether that truck is little. I really don't care what's in that truck. We're just charging for moving things. It could be paper towels, it could be pineapples, it could be anything. We're just basically a moving company. We are a logistics company to make sure that what you order is into our facility in time for when you need it dropped. And if you need to pull from our warehouse, that we have enough at all times. It's all just logistics. So their team is really set up to help you figure out, because it is sort of overwhelming to think about when you're ordering. How much do I order? How do I know if I'm ordering enough? Those reps that work for distribution companies, that's their job, is to figure out, how often should I bring this to you? How much should I bring to you? Obviously, you have to figure it out a little bit as well, but it should be sort of this two-way conversation, especially as you're getting going, that they're sort of helping you figure out the logistics of that. So it's definitely should be a two-way street. I think it should be a very friendly relationship. I've had distributors that have tried to get our business, and right off the bat, tell me what a small fish I am. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks. I knew that already, but I'm not interested in this relationship. I want to feel more important than I am. And I mean that sincerely. I want to feel like it matters to somebody if the things that were supposed to come on the truck that I ordered in time on a deadline didn't show up. That should be a big deal to somebody else other than me. So, I really love the relationships I have with my purveyors. It can be frustrating at times because, we run such a tight operation that you can't function if your things don't show up, and, your food cost goes up and you're running around. And so it can be a real pain in the butt, but the best way to operate is to make sure you have a really great purveyor that you've got a good relationship with, that's going to help you out if there was a mispick, or if something, or like Chef Ari said, they have told me, hey, we're catching wind that, this and this is happening to the strawberry industry, and we're expecting prices to jump up in the next month or so. Just want to give you some headwind. So, then it's okay, well then, yeah, let's order up now, or let's freeze, or let's switch my menu so it's not strawberries and I'm using bloobs instead, or whatever it is. So it should be that sort of relationship where they're looking out for you and for your success.
I think knowing that mindset, knowing that they're just trying to get as many routes on their delivery as possible, is a really good way to think about how you should be talking to the distributors. And they just want to earn you as a customer and offer as many things as possible that you might need. Ari, can we talk a bit about value add? I know a lot of purveyors will offer services, like if you need things cut a certain way, or you need a certain type of produce, or like Olivia, you're talking about the different types of bananas, so they'll kind of sort the bananas for you and drop you off what you need. Ari, maybe you can speak a little on that.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of stuff a purveyor could do is really surprising to a lot of people. You could have, I know there's certain places where they're basically juicing in a kiosk, where they've been able to talk to purveyors to give them their actual recipes for juicing, and they can tell the purveyor, I'm making 20 of this green juice, 20 of my red juice, 20 of my carrot juice, and the purveyors will actually clean the product, wash it, put it in a box, and send it to them so that they could receive it, juice everything, and they don't need to worry about storage of produce. But of course, everything the purveyor does, it's going to add labor into that, so it might not be extremely cost effective, but it's certain things that they could help you out with.
It might be cost effective though, because you might have to hire a full person to do all that. So it might be cheaper to have their team do it while they're also processing orders for 30 other restaurants. Like if they just spend 2 hours on your stuff, that's a lot easier than you paying someone to come in for half a day or something.
Yeah, and there's amazing stuff that you could do to reduce waste too, because a lot of times highly desirable would be like chiffonade kale or chopped kale for salads, and they'll destem it. Talk to them and be like, can I just buy those stems from you? Because it's great for juicing, tastes like kale. There's no real difference. Instead of them just composting it, it's a way to develop that relationship. There's so many instances where we've relied on them for stuff. I remember I did a banquet for New Year's for almost 4,000 people. And I was in charge of one dish by itself. And it was kind of one small component where we did a watermelon radish. We pickled it, but we had to cut it into a perfect square. So it had to be about 4 inches by 4 inches. So watermelon radishes, that's kind of close. So we actually notified the purveyor 6 months ahead of time. They told the farmer we need extra large watermelon radish,
Wow.
and they were able to do it. You know, so it's like you'd be surprised at how much they can help you out with your operation.
All right, let's get into a little bit about challenges with sourcing certain items and how you might handle those. We touched on it a little bit, but let's say you're sourcing organic celery, and then all of a sudden you realize it's winter and your purveyor doesn't have organic celery for the next month or something. Ari, how do you think about that issue?
Well, first of all, I would probably have, in terms of purveyors, I'd always recommend, if at all possible, having one large purveyor, like a nationwide distributor. They're your backup plan. You know, they're the ones that are available in every state, city, depending on where you're at, but usually always readily available. That's a purveyor to have for basically your backup plan. Then you'll have other purveyors that are your main purveyors that basically you get your local product, your everyday product. Okay, so it's almost impossible to not be able to get an item at any time of the year. It's just, you're going to pay more for it, you know? And so I can't tell you how many times that we needed to source exotic fruit that was exact opposite season we were supposed to get it. They would get it to us, but it wouldn't be cost effective at all. So you can get any product any time of the year, no matter what. It's just going to be extremely expensive. So if you're at like a standalone juice shop and you're short on celery, I would go through the list of the purveyors, check the backup purveyor. If they don't have it, that's where I would start kind of looking at local produce, grocery stores. You know, see if I could pull some in, see if I could talk to the produce manager, and they might have some cases in the back I might buy. I know a few of them will actually give you a discount if you buy a case of a certain item. You know, all the way down to, if none of those work, then that's where you kind of got to 86 it for a day or not be able to sell that product, and then start calling around the purveyors, you know, because it's not always effective to be able to source it from all around the country or the world. But that's the steps I would do, you know.
And there's an issue where sometimes distributors will start to kind of creep prices up on you. I know we've had it happen at our company. And Ari, do you have any tips to negotiating with the suppliers?
Yeah, well, it's a big challenge because, like I said, a lot of times they'll just source it from further away, and they won't notify you on every produce item. They're just going to change the price on you. You know, it would be impossible. So produce prices change every day. So you got to have a system in place. You know, I write Excel sheets with people's recipes in there so that they can just plug in the current price per pound and figure out if that's the way they should be selling it, or if it's way too high, you can pinpoint that exact reason why that produce is too high and you need to make adjustments. So having a system in place where you can just enter the current price per pound and make sure it's cost effective is extremely important. You got to be able to do that in like 5 minutes. Takes
Right,
longer to figure your food cost. You're gonna stop doing it. So,
so basically, like before you place an order for the next day or a couple days from now, you run it in the cost calculator and make sure it makes sense, right?
Yeah, and you can put caps on stuff if you notice, like every other month they're raising the price on pineapples for me. You could tell the purveyor, hey, you got to let me know if you're going above this price per case. You know, you could put caps on that, or have them notify you, which will work. But yeah, you always want to have a backup plan.
Is it worth having multiple suppliers just for the sake of comparing prices every time you go to order? Is that too much work and maybe you should just find one you trust?
Yeah, I mean, it's best to have one purveyor for basically everything. If you're noticing the prices are really fluctuating around, that's where I bring in the other one, kind of compare prices, making sure they're getting the right products, at the right price. So it's always good to have two kind of local suppliers or purveyors that you can kind of figure out the costing. I wouldn't go in so much detail where, oh, this is a quarter cheaper from this guy or a quarter cheaper from this place and go back and forth. I would just be plugging in my numbers. If I notice it's consistently changing and becoming too expensive, then I'd start comparing all my produce items.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that covers everything. I guess I have one last comment that we do continually add more products to the Goodnature Marketplace online. If you guys want to check that out, we're going to be adding a new tea vendor pretty soon. It's going to have multiple different types of loose leaf tea. So that's exciting. We already have matcha tea on there, but this will be other types of tea as well. And we added protein recently, and we've got a bunch of other items on there. And glass bottles are coming soon. So for people looking for sourcing those kinds of items, make sure to check out the marketplace at goodnature.com. That's all we got for you today. Thank you, everybody.
Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.